All right, good afternoon. Let's call to order the Legal and Legislative Committee. The time is 12 o'clock. This is our meeting for March 25th, 2026. This time, I'd like to ask Commissioner Slater if she would lead us in a prayer, and Commissioner Blake if he would lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Pray, Father, that proudly
Dan, Luke.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which is the nation under God.
All right, thank you very much. Before we proceed, just a housekeeping note, ensure your microphone is activated each time you speak. This is important for official record, for those joining us remotely, for everyone here in the room. I thank you. And just as a note, I've moved over here to the side. I asked Ms. Moultrie to move me over here so I could see. I had a little bit of difficulty seeing last time, so I think we'll have a good discussion today, and hopefully I can see everybody and allow everybody to participate in that discussion. I want to welcome our committee members today. Note the absence of Commissioner Alford. Certainly continue to remember him. Thankful for those that are joining us out in the audience today, our friends from the city, Joe Fivas, Seth Summers, and Jonathan Jobe. Thank you for that. And, of course, Doug Berry is here with us today. Mr. Will from the Cleveland Daily Banner, thank you for joining us. At this time, I'd like to approve the minutes from our December 2nd, 2025 meeting. Those can be found on page 3 through 6 in your packet. If we have a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes as printed.
We have a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion has been moved and seconded. All votes are aye, so motion passes. Let's move into our agenda items. The first agenda item for today, the HCI policy regarding eligibility. It is a request to discuss the current policy of what defines eligible applicants. At this time, I open the floor for discussion on the item. Would anybody like to be recognized? Commissioner Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the one I asked you to put on the agenda. It's fairly simple, but it does need to be taken care of. As it now stands only, as you see right here, 501(c)(3)s as defined by the IRS and those agencies, commission boards of Bradley County, City of Cleveland, and Charleston can apply for HCI. In the past, we've had a couple organizations more in the veterans world apply, but because of the language, you know, the 501(c)(3), they are 501(c)(19), authorized by Congress and all that. So I think it's fairly simple. Just add 501(c)(19) as an eligible organization, which includes organizations like American Legion, Veterans of Foreign War, Disabled Veterans. Those are all defined by the IRS. I've asked Crystal to look into that, and I think it's as simple as just adding that chapter in the IRS code to our language, which allows them to directly apply for HCI. It's as simple as that.
Ms. Freiberg, would you like to share on that?
Sure. So if you recall, I think when this first came up, there was discussion about 501(c)(19) and also 501(c)(4)s being added as well. And so Commissioner Blake and I have talked about it. The 501(c)(4), I think, is problematic to add. And the reason for that is because those are organizations that promote social welfare, and they are allowed unlimited political lobbying activities, and it includes things of charitable, religious, education, scientific, literary, public safety, fostering amateur sports. It is a very broad category, and so I think one of the agencies that they had talked about was a C4. So I think for those reasons, that one could be problematic, and I wouldn't recommend us adding that. So we've already talked about that, but I don't think any of you all have heard that. The C19 is not as general or broad. So if you approve 501(c)(19) organizations, you are approving anybody who meets that definition. So they have to apply, they have to get that designation. So it includes a post or organization of past or present members of the United States Armed Forces, an auxiliary unit or society of such post or organization. So it does include societies of veterans or any present members of the armed services. Or a trust or foundation for such posts. So if you approve adding that status, it would include any of those potential, because if they meet any of those definitions, they can apply for C-19 status. So it certainly could be. If we do it, though, I do think the 501c19 is much more limited than the 501c4.
So let's go down this. You'll look into 19s, and because we know who is American Legion, VFW, all those.
Yes.
We don't have to have this day. The HCI process isn't until the end of the year, so we got a little time. Crystal, if I could ask you to look into her and come back with an opinion on 19s at our next meeting here in a month or two, I'd appreciate that. I think that's the best course. That way we don't do something and then have to retract and all that. So 4s are not going to happen.
Yes, I think
And-
that's
And then based off of your recommendation on 19.
okay.
All right, is that all right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Is that all, Commissioner Blake?
Yep.
Anything else from members of the committee? Yes, sir, Commissioner Hughes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask, Crystal, it sounds like you just gave an opinion that that would be the one to go with. Do you want to look into that deeper, or are you okay with us just going ahead and adding that?
Well, I certainly think if you're going to expand it, you would definitely want to choose the 19 over the 4. I think the only outstanding question for you all to sort of decide is, do you want to open it up more broadly? I mean, 501c3s, when you look at the distinction, we've always made them be a 501c3 or a governmental entity. And some of that is because with 501c3s, they can't lobby. They can't be involved in political things. 501c4s have unlimited ability. I don't know off the top of my head whether or not the C-19s can, but I believe that they can engage in political lobbying. So there definitely are some differences, but they do have to be veterans groups. So the advantage is you are limiting it to the veterans groups. So, I mean, I can certainly give you some more detail or try to, but it's ultimately up to you all whether or not you want to open up the HCI funds. And keep in mind, too, for them to comply, they would still have to meet all the other requirements of HCI funding, meaning they would have to show that they're using the funds for appropriate purposes and that those type things. So the question is just whether or not you want to open up those funds to entities that are the C-19s.
Commissioner Hughes, anything else?
No, I honestly believe that we should move forward with it, but I wouldn't want to make the recommendation. I would rather it be the one that's one of our veterans make that recommendation personally, but it was his idea, so.
Here we are in March, and we don't start till December or January, so we got all summer and fall to make sure we get it right. It's the beginning of the conversation, so if we approve something today or something in June, same.
Literally,
Yeah, I was just glad to
leaving
find
this
out
for you.
that there is another chapter for it in the 19, seems like. So that's what I say is you're going to be calling a legal legislator here in the next month or two, and she'll have time to research it.
Commissioner Slater, anything? Is there a motion on the floor?
Unless
Okay.
she's giving guidance.
Very good. No motion, so we'll move on to the next item, and Ms. Freiberg, is that acceptable? Okay, very good. So we'll move on to the next item, the Uniform County Highways Law Amendment. This has been a request from our road department. I believe they have got representation here that may want to speak. So a request for the General Assembly to narrowly amend the Uniform County Highways Law so that local departments can offer aid during times of emergency. Any would love for the road department to speak, if that's acceptable. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name's Josh Booker. I'm Tom Collins' assistant over at the Bradley County Road Department. He wanted to be here today, but unfortunately couldn't make it. Hopefully, I can explain to you guys what we're hoping to achieve with some new legislation. So I've been working at the road department for a little over 3 years now, and luckily in my time there, I haven't had to witness a bad tornado hit the county. But realistically, where we're at in Tennessee, it's only a matter of time before Bradley County gets hit with another bad one. I've heard stories about the destruction from a bad tornado, and I know most of you all have seen the devastation as well. Our supervisor was telling me about an especially bad one you all had back in 2011, where there were entire houses in the middle of the road, families standing out in their yard because everything got destroyed except their basement. And I heard an especially disturbing story about them coming across a woman that was thrown into a tree and unfortunately passed away. During a storm event like this, it's a race against time for emergency crews to get to people that need help, and it's the road department's job to clear those roads as fast as possible. During a disaster, even with a large road department like ours, crews will be working all day and all night for several days in a row, clearing the road so people can get help. Other counties in Tennessee are at a high risk for tornadoes too, and if they are in a situation where their road department gets overwhelmed, my boss Tom would like to be able to send over our crews to help as quick as we can. With the way the county uniform highway law is right now, the road department would have to wait on the county legislative body to have a vote on whether or not Bradley County could send the road department to help. This vote could take a few weeks, and by then the window where extra people could go and clear roads faster to potentially save lives is pretty much closed. We were hoping there could be some kind of provision made where the road superintendent has the authority to send crews to another county that needs it without waiting on a county commission vote.
Thank you, Josh. So in summary, you're looking for a letter of support from the county commission, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Freiberg?
So yeah, to continue on with what Josh is saying, so 547202 is the statute that is in play. And it is a statute that was passed to basically keep equipment and county materials from being used inappropriately. So that's what its purpose is. And Tom, I believe it was when the Nashville issues occurred, wanted to be able to help, and he asked me that question, and unfortunately I had to say to him, no, you can't. And the reason for that, and so you know the language as it reads, in section D, it currently says, neither the chief administrative officer nor any other official or employee of the county may use any county vehicle, equipment, supplies, or road materials for other than official county road purposes. However, the county governing body has the authority to authorize the county road department to perform work for other governmental entities, provided that the cost of the project so authorized is to be reimbursed to the county road department. So there is a mechanism where it can happen. Problem is, it's going to be delayed because, and that's what Tom and I had talked about. He, in essence, in order for this to work, it's written more for, I think the mayor has worked with the road department before and said, Tom, give me an estimate. Tom provides an estimate, and then there's an agreement between the schools or a different department or the sheriff's office or whoever to say, I will pay you back, and I agree to pay that work. So that can happen if you all approve it. So the problem in this emergency scenario is that statute prohibits it from happening without going through this body, providing a cost estimate, which is truthfully impractical. So that's what they're requesting, is either to change that language, add to that language, amend that language in some way for the very limited purpose of emergency situations.
Thank you, Ms. Freiberg. Now open it up for anyone that has a comment from the committee. Commissioner Blake? No, Commissioner Blake.
Crystal, does there have to be any formal declaration that emergencies happen? Like the governor has to say Blount County's had a tornado in order for it to go into effect?
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Can we just say they've had a bad day? I mean...
Yeah, I mean, it could be written either way. I mean, certainly, I'm assuming the state would want when they're looking at legislation, you would want it to be limited so it can't be can't be used for inappropriate things. So, yeah, I mean, that would probably make sense, that there be some sort of official designation that it be, an emergency situation. So that is one possibility. It could be changed in a multitude of ways, but that would be one way to do it that would probably make the most sense.
And is this only for the road department? I mean, Mayor,
Yes.
doesn't Troy help out when there's other?
The uniform law that they're referring to
It's-
only refers to the road department.
It
Yeah, so
is, yeah.
Troy he can go to other counties, right?
Fire
Yeah.
department,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah, it's just the road department.
And it's all because they want some reimbursement for the materials and labor or something, or just?
It's because when they put the Uniform Highway Law in, truthfully, I think there were some misappropriation of funds across the state in road departments and
Oh.
use of funds, I assume, not in Bradley County, of course,
Of
but
course.
in other counties there were some issues. And so they put this in place to keep that from happening, but it's just applicable to highway departments.
Thank you, Commissioner Blake. Anybody else? Is there a motion on the floor at this time? Commissioner Hughes,
I'll make a motion.
can you clarify that
To-
motion, please?
The motion is to allow them to be able to go to other counties and be reimbursed, of course.
That's
And
right.
I'm
No.
trying to, am I correct the way I'm understanding this? And, oh. Okay. Which now I'm reading this, yes, I am going to make that motion to do this, to request Tennessee Assembly to amend the Uniform County Highway Law to allow local road departments to aid in other counties during times of emergencies. Does that sound a little better?
We have a motion from Commissioner Hughes. We have a second. A second from Commissioner Slater. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor say aye. Motion passes 4-0. Josh, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Appreciate you. Okay, very good. So the next item on the agenda is the tax incremental financing program. This is pretty detailed, and I'll kind of walk through this. I want to say this on the front end, and I've shared this with Will. I first want to say thank you to our committee. I mean, this is a heavy and deep document. You have access to those documents on page 7 through 26. You have digital documentation. Mr. Berry, we'll get to you in just a second, okay? We'll walk through this, okay? I want to thank the members of the committee for taking time to review it because it's heavy and detailed. There's a lot to it. I also want to thank Ms. Freiberg, who's been available every step of the way. She's been a resource for us to kind of talk about how we can shape this tool to use for our community. It's complicated, and what I'd say is our goal today is to evaluate the policy and procedures from the vantage point of what's best for our community, while continuing to provide transparency to our citizens and diligence to the process of navigating what is right. I think that's important, and it's an important commentary that we do this thing openly and we take a very hard look at all of these things and we try our best to explain it because it is new. I think the TIF program has been around in Tennessee since 2004. It has never been used in Bradley County, and so we're talking about policies and procedures that will shape what we do for decades to come. So I think it's important that we take our time and walk through this in the right way. So a couple of notes just before we begin. This does not engage us to a specific TIF agreement. This discussion is a framework by which we will consider engaging in the TIF process. From this meeting, one of two things will occur, and Ms. Freiberg, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, okay? Either we will navigate this body and this document, make no recommendations and changes, make a motion to move this document to the full commission for approval, or the second option, we will navigate the document, pass a motion to make any changes that we see necessary. From there, we'll ask Ms. Freiberg to create those necessary changes in a red line document, and then have a final review of that proposed document in a meeting, which I would recommend to occur immediately before our next work session, which is noon, April 13th. If that document is accepted in its form, we would vote as a body, legal and legislative, to move it on to the full commission work session that day for them to consider. Ms. Freiberg, am I on the right point there? Okay. Very good. So you have an electronic copy of the financing. And what I did, and I thank you, Ms. Moultrie, for doing this, I went through and just created kind of a slide deck of the sections, and I gave a copy of that slide deck. Mr. Will has a copy of that as well, where we can see the general purpose and policies and whatnot, and maybe some of the notes on the right-hand side. So you see that, you have access to that, just to help the process move forward. What we're going to do is take sections 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7 as whole sections. Then we're going to look at sections 4 and 5 according to their alphabetic designation. So we'll take some of the other sections as big parts and the major section, procedures and policies, and we'll go designation at a time so we can take a closer look at those and discuss them. Finally, we'll get to the application itself at the end. I would like to ask that we direct our questions to Ms. Freiberg. And if motions are made, please be specific in the language, an amendment or change. I expect that this meeting will take a little bit longer than our typical meeting, and because of that, if you need to take a break, restroom, water, whatever, please do so quietly and politely. I'm going to try to keep this thing moving smoothly and orderly. Ms. Freiberg's going to help me, and I appreciate her. If you would like to be recognized for comment, please let me know so we can do that, and as we need to, we'll navigate this document. Mr. Berry, I'll ask for you if you want to give just kind of a general statement, quick and down and dirty at the beginning. If you'd like to do that now, that'd be fine, or if you want to wait till the very end, that's fine too. No, okay, we'll wait to the end, and we'll open that up for comments at the very end with that. Let's look at section 1, and we'll start with this, and that's going to be the very first page of your handout, and you'll see that section 1. This is the introduction of tax incremental financing. So at this point, I want to open the floor for discussion on these 5 paragraphs. Does anybody wish to be recognized? Commissioner Slater.
I have a question about paragraph 3 that begins, these policies and procedures only apply to any tax increment incentives requested by a private party, including cases where the tax increment incentive will be applied to assist with the cost of public facilities. So when we look at a TIF, is a TIF to help build public facilities such as a school or a fire station? Or should the TIF be for building roads, sewer, intersections, sidewalks, utilities? Well, I need some clarification for that part.
Ms. Freiberg.
Well, as a general rule, the statute, we're controlled by the statute on TIFs. That's where you start from what you can and can't do. Unfortunately, it talks about public infrastructure, and there's things that I think we all can say for sure, like what you talked about. Stormwater, utilities, roads, those things are yeses and clearly do work. I have never seen anything that says for sure how far you can go outside of that. I have, in some conversations, been told that schools and fire halls are a no. Ultimately, when you approve these plans, it will say the things that you are including. And obviously, if the comptroller's office has a problem with what we've done and have said, because ultimately you have to follow the statute, so you can only use it for things that statutorily is allowed. So I think the further you get away from roads, utilities, stormwater, those type of things that clearly can be used, the closer you're getting to know you're improperly doing that. So to answer your question, I don't know that we know for sure exactly how far that goes. I think I can tell you the things that is for sure yes, which are the things you mentioned. So I can't for sure tell you that's pushed it too far without actually looking at a particular TIF to say, well, this is what they're proposing, this is too far. Now certainly you can look at other ones that have been done and have been approved. And so anything that we've seen other TIFs used for, then obviously those things will work. But to my knowledge, I don't know of any that have been used for fire halls in schools.
Can we take that statement out of this document? Does that statement have to be in the document?
I think that statement is trying to basically track, though, the state law, which allows it to be used for public infrastructure. So, I mean, I think the challenge is the impossibility to sort of define every possible thing that you might want to use. I mean, you could be probably more specific and say, public facilities as defined in the statute, you could say something like that. But I think the document is trying to say whatever statutorily allowed, that's how broad it would be.
So can we add the comment to what is allowed by the statute?
Yes, I think we could. And you're talking about in that third paragraph, right?
Correct. It starts with these policies and procedures only apply to any tax
The
increment.
cost of public facilities as defined in the statute.
Correct.
Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
Yes, I'll put that in the form of a motion.
We have a motion. We have a second by Commissioner Hughes. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 4-0.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Mayor would like to speak.
Is this limiting us, because you mentioned infrastructure at one point, public facilities, it's usually been considered that public facilities do qualify. Who are we going to have to ask to find out if the difference between the two?
Yeah, and that's, as
If we own a facility, we maintain the facility, why wouldn't it be approved?
Well, and I think, I don't think the state approves the TIF. I think you have to submit it to the comptroller's office. That's what the statute says. You submit the TIF once you've approved everything to them, and then they have it on file. What the challenge would be if the comptroller ever were to say, you're doing this improperly, sort of after the fact. So I think that's what we have to be careful to do in working with IDB to make sure that whatever we approve is not something that's going to be outside of those parameters.
Well, I understand,
But the
but
challenge is Mayor, it doesn't really tell us exactly. There's no list that says this is
I know.
these are the 45 things you can include. These are the 10 things that you can't. To my knowledge, that list doesn't exist anywhere. So
The comptroller's office is going to be deciphering the law in their opinion, and they could say it has to be only for infrastructure, where I could be arguing, no, it can be for public facilities that we own.
I can foresee that happening, yes.
The comptroller's been wrong before, I can tell you that. We've had lawsuits to that effect. I hate for that much power to be in that one entity and it not be more clear.
I mean, with regard to the policy, though, I think Commissioner Slater is on the right track in the sense that all we can really do, I think, from a policy standpoint, is try to craft the language so that it limits it to what is statutorily allowed. Unfortunately, that's going to mean on a project-by-project basis, you have to look at that to see if it is. I mean, I do think, obviously, the safer you are with that, as I said, you know, if we know these 25 things have been used in other TIFs in the state, that obviously would be, and Doug probably would have more information on that he could give us at some point in time of things that have been included. And then, you know, and we could at least know those type things. But I think from a policy standpoint, the best we can do is track that exact language from the statute about what is allowed, what is legally allowed to be included in a TIF. So it's the best I know to do to protect us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other comments from the first section?
So I do have another question. So can each body, like the county or the city, develop their own, or does it have to be a joint venture together?
Yes, so it can be either or both. So a TIF could be approved as a city-only TIF, and it also could be as county-only TIF. obviously, it could be both as well. So without the approval of both entities, the TIF can't, the TIF can't include the county without the county's approval, can't include the city without the city's approval. Obviously, for it to include both would have to approve it. So yes, that is a possibility. It can be just one and not the other, or it can be both.
Thank you.
Is that in the law, or does that need to be in the policy?
I don't know that I saw it directly stated in the policy. It definitely in the introduction suggests that, but I do think we probably could be a little bit more clear on that. And a good place to include that would be in this introduction section.
Okay, so could we add the verbiage that says, the ability of a TIF can be enacted by either the city or county and not necessarily together?
Yes, we could.
Commissioner Blake?
So, excuse me, from a process point of view, if that's the case, for the sake of the argument, then wouldn't that have to be disclosed from the very beginning? I mean, right now, there's an application process, right? So developer, or whatever, is gonna fill out an application. At that point in time, you would wanna know whether or not it's gonna be county only, city only, or joint, right? I mean, from a processing point of view, because why go through an application process and then find out it's going to be a county only? Obviously, if it's in the county only, then it's going to be county only. But in the city, which obviously we all know, everything is in the county as well. I mean, I'm thinking from a process point, that has to be closed right up front, like,
Well, I think there would,
and agreed upon right up front.
I think if, it would be hard for me to imagine why anybody would submit a request that didn't include both.
I agree. I don't
Because
get that either, but it's allowed.
It would be
Right.
allowed, yeah. So I do agree with you that in all the documentation as it's presented and planned, if it originally started as a joint city-county, and at some point, either the county or city, either one says, we're not gonna approve that, obviously all of it would need to be changed and redone, because the numbers wouldn't be right, the plan wouldn't work. So as a practical matter, you're correct. If you went down the path of doing it as a joint city-county, and then it ended up just being one or the other, obviously, it would have to be changed and redone. Almost completely, probably.
So if you start, I know, if you start off and you're wanting a joint, both city and county to buy into the TIF proposal, and then it turns out, for us, the county's like, basically, no, we're not interested, or for whatever reason, then the city basically says, we are, and we'll do it kind of by ourselves. That means, this is an incentive package, right? I mean, so you're gonna have taxes on coming in. This is property tax stuff, so you're gonna have the city with an incentive plan, and the county are gonna tax them just like we do there's a lot of problems.
Well, to give you an example, so if you jump to, and I'm sorry,
That's,
to jump around, but if you jump to page 7, where there's the economic impact plan, if you look at the things that have to be included, so assuming we approve this, or assuming we approve it as written, it says if the board approves the preparation of an economic impact plan, the board will cause a proposed economic plan to be prepared. So then when you look at what will be in that plan, you're right. That plan is going to include whether it's only a city project, only a county project, or both city-county TIF programs. So it would include in the plan that. So to answer your question, yes. Once you go down the road of having the economic impact plan prepared, it's going to have either both or one or the other in it, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Commissioner Blake. And see if I can clarify this, Commissioner Slater, just for the record. I'm taking your comments as to indicate that a TIF can exist either or.
Correct.
Not that anyone would apply specifically for.
Correct. But it
that
could,
that
according to
you
what
could, but there
Ms.
would,
Freiberg said.
correct, but it could exist in an either or. So identification that it must include both municipalities is incorrect. So we just wanted to, you want to indicate that in the record, correct? Okay.
Or just for the purpose of, TIFs could go through either the IDB board or the housing authority. We're only referring to those TIFs that are going through IDB, right? Because housing authority, different stuff, right?
Yes.
Today,
That's
we're only
correct.
talking about
Yes.
IDB.
That's correct. So, Ms. Moultrie, do we have a motion for that, to include that? Is that a motion, Ms.
I will
Slater?
put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, the motion is to repeat your motion, please, Commissioner Slater.
That we add a section that includes a statement that's specific to the ability of a TIF to be enacted by either the city or the county and not necessarily together. Can be together and probably should be together.
So this is a process addition,
Yes.
correct? Okay, yeah, and a second on that, a second from Commissioner Hughes. Any discussion? All right, very good, no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries 4-0. So let's move to section 2, and again, this is one of those that we will take as a whole. You can find it starts at the end of page 1, carries through page 2, and into page 3. This is the enabling legislation and statutory authority of the board with regard to tax increment incentive program. A lot of, I guess, boilerplate language on that. However, again, any comment on this in any specific section? Commissioner Slater?
So in section A, it states, as a prerequisite to reviewing an economic impact plan, the board may request an economic impact analysis be conducted by a third party, blah, blah, blah. Can we change the word may to shall?
Ms. Freiberg, would you want to talk about that? And I'll say this on the front end, that's one of the items that I would like to speak to at a later point in the meeting. But Ms. Freiberg, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I guess to answer your question, certainly. That could be, if you changed it to read, as a prerequisite to reviewing an economic impact plan, the board shall request an economic impact analysis be conducted. You certainly could. The impact of that, though, there's a couple other places in the policy that it would impact, first off. And then the other part of that is, from my understanding at least, that cost would be on the applicant to prepare that stuff, and it's a third party, so they're paying somebody, an outside entity, to essentially do this and prepare it. So yes, you could. If you do it, that's how it would work. I will say, and I apologize for skipping around, but you almost have to do this. If you look in section, and if you want me to, I can wait till we get there, but there's a couple other sections where if you change that language, it would have to be changed here as well, because page 6, section 4, tax increment incentive procedure, in that it talks about how the application review committee will also recommend to the board whether or not an impact analysis should be obtained. So that whole part, when you start there, which is about halfway down that paragraph, that is saying that the committee, once they start the review process, would decide whether or not they want to require one or not. Well, if we're changing it to say there has to be one, obviously all that would need to go away, because there would not be any, that committee wouldn't have to do it, it would already be required. So that would need to be addressed. And then, of course, it says if the tax increment incentive will primarily pay for publicly owned facilities from which the applicant will not benefit, it is expected that an economic impact will be required. So that's them kind of saying this is when we will, this is when we won't. So my point is that would need to be changed, and that same language is also in the initial resolution by the board. It's in that next section as well. So if we change that portion, we would also need to change those two sections as well.
Thank you, Ms. Freiberg. Well, let's put that as a placeholder, and what we can do, if it's acceptable, Commissioner Slater, is let's
fine.
kind of take that as a bulk. If it changes within the policy or procedure, I can't remember off the top of my head which
Just
one.
looking for transparency.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any other comments or amendments, questions from section 2? If not, we will move forward to Section 3. So you can flip the page. That's Section 3 is the tax increment incentive description and general process. This is on page 3. It moves through page 4, page 5, and then halfway up page 6. So this is a big one you can flip through. Any comments specific to the description and general process, with kind of the same caveat that Ms. Freiberg has indicated? There may be elements within this section that are impacted by policy and procedures in 5 and 6. Any comments specific to that? I probably should not do this, but I will. I'll offer the comment. Just as this has been really fun for me to read and to learn about. 6 months ago, I'd never heard of tax incremental financing, and it's been neat to kind of consume this just as homework and learning and things like that. As I stated before, the TIF program's been around since 2004 in Tennessee, and it was originally designed as a program to reduce blight, and it was a way for the government to incentivize a developer or an individual to come in and take on areas of blight that needed development or improvement. That was the original intent of the TIF program, as I understand its history, and it's kind of, I guess, moved into a gray area, so to speak, where there can be a little bit of encroachment between government and private party. So I just want to note it for the record that the original intent of tax incremental financing is designed to improve your community in the areas of blight. And there are certain protections that we'll get to later in this that identify that and work through that. But I think it's important to note the historical context of that. If there are no other comments, any other comments? If there are no other comments, let's move on to item 4. And this is where we will begin taking the items kind of letter by letter. Tax incremental incentive procedures, and we'll begin with application. Give you just a few minutes to kind of skim through that. And again, just as a note, thank you for doing this. I know this has been a big, heavy document, and I want to say thank you to Ms. Moultrie. She did a great job of really providing resources to not just this committee, but the entire commission in terms of understanding TIF and what it is and what it can do for your community. So thank you for that, Ms. Moultrie. Let's start with application. Any comments specific to application? Commissioner Blake.
Is this the part where if we like the application to include something here?
That would be at the end. We'll talk specific applications at the very end. That's correct. Commissioner Slater?
So once the application is completed, it's my understanding that the application is sent to the county mayor. Is that correct? And the city mayor, everyone involved. Is that correct?
Application.
Yeah,
Ms. Freiberg.
so if you, the way the policy reads currently, the application is made in section A. Applicant must complete the application, so at that point, they are just completing what you're gonna see at the end, which is the application process. They give supplemental data, financial information, schedules, and exhibits. The applicant must also submit the fee, so they're paying it. And then when you look at section B, that tells you what happens next. So it says initial review by application review committee. The board shall appoint a committee responsible for carrying out the functions, and then it tells you who that is. So the committee shall include the officers of the board, county mayor or his designee, the City of Cleveland Community Development Director, the city manager, his designee, and any other such members. So those would be the people who would get the initial application. So the mayor or his designee is included on that list.
So it doesn't automatically come to the county commission,
No.
should it?
I mean, if this is your policy, so to the extent that you would not get, I can say that if it stays the way it's written, you all would not get it at this point. It would go to the mayor or his designee, so I'll just say for purposes of the mayor. And it would, I believe from that list, that is the only person that is a county, just make sure that, yes, so the county mayor would be the only, county official that would have a copy at this point in the process.
Copy of the application.
Correct.
Commissioner Slater?
I'm just thinking. I may come back to this.
Mayor, would you like to add any commentary on that?
I think you're questioning whether to say mayor and commission, which I don't have a problem if you do that. More than likely that would occur, but I guess there could be instances down the road where it didn't, so might be safer to add that.
Commissioner Blake?
Just want to say, the application, whether or not, is it considered a public document when an applicant fills out the application, they submit it to the IDB board? Is it a public document?
You know, that's a
At that point in
fantastic
time,
question.
Is it subject to Freedom of Information
Yeah,
Act? And all that?
my guess is no, not at that point, but I have not researched that issue and probably wouldn't want to give a full answer to that.
I
don't
wouldn't
know
want
if
you
it
to,
does or
but
not,
you can see where an interested party files a Freedom of Information Act. And obviously, if it does fall under Freedom of Information, then you have all the rules that go with that.
Right,
right?
well, and I
But
can.
they have conversations with organizations that are, I wouldn't call them privy, but right now you can have, I'm looking at Doug, you can have organization, and there are conversations, emails, documents aren't subject to freedom of information. I was just wondering if this does fall under.
Yeah, I would have to research that. The way the Freedom of Information Act, the Tennessee version of it works is it starts with the proposition that everything is a public record and everything is open to inspection. And then there is an entire statute that has subparts that are AA, Z, goes on and on and on about all the things that then are not subject to that. So unless you find a specific subsection that says something is not, then it is a public record. So I would need to, I have never researched that issue, so I can certainly look.
I think it's important because if it does come to us, I would think, Commissioner Slater, it absolutely falls under freedom because we're transparent. I think, not that you're not transparent, but they are allowed to have
Right.
that.
And well, and to the extent that it comes to the mayor, I mean, he obviously has to deal with those issues as well because anything he gets potentially can become public. And I was going to say too that if you do change it, to just say it needs to go to the county commission is probably not specific enough. I mean, if you want it sent to somebody, I think they would need to know who on the county commission, what position on the county commission. You know, it probably, in my opinion, doesn't make sense for it to be all 14 of you getting a copy of it. So if you do decide to do that, I think it needs to be very specific about the way the rest of them are written, you know, who would be getting that.
And I don't know if this is
And
the
then
right time
that
or place.
person would not be part of the review committee, at least as written either. They would just, unless you change that, would just be getting a copy of it for review.
One of the things here that I just saw is that along with the mayor being on the application review committee, the idea of having one of the 14 of us on that review committee designated by chairman or by the full commission. Right.
Correct.
So having the 14 of us have problematic, but having on that application committee, I think.
Well, and you also get into, if it's all of you, then you got sunshine law and all those things too that apply to any time you have a meeting.
Yeah.
And so all those things as well. So yes,
eventually
I
it's
think 14 of you is certainly problematic.
So Commissioner Blake, I guess to kind of move this forward, we'll move to Part B because both of these work together. And I think your question is, would it be possible in the Part B initial review by application committee to add an elected county commissioner as a representative on that review committee? It is not stated in that section, but doing so
that-
would create, Commissioner Slater, to your point, that knowledge of those applications that come through. Is that a motion? Is that a motion you'd like to make?
Is it ready for that? Yeah, that's.
Sure.
As I reviewed this over the last couple of months, that's, and I've, something I think would be, helpful. So now's the time to do
Very
it. I'd
good.
like to make that motion.
All right, so there's a motion, and this would be in section B, Ms. Freiberg, to, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Blake, to add, as a part of the review committee, one county commissioner as appointed by the county commission. Is that correct?
Right, so, not to get into the weeds, but county commission is 14 of us make a nomination and vote that person in there, so, or just the chairman. Oh, he's gone. Do it. And that's, I don't want to get so burdensome with legalistic things.
Yeah, I think
I don't care. I just don't want to get so legalistic that we can't see, the trees from the forest, whatever the saying is. I think the chairman, we voted the chairman to make kind of those decisions. I think the chairman should say, Commissioner, whoever, I'm signing you. In the next TIF application, it could be someone else. It's not that you're there for a term. It's that unless you think that's best, it may be best. I mean, I'm thinking out loud.
Well, you probably need to say that because of
Because
when I
whoever that
interpreted.
commissioner is going to start learning the TIF world.
Oh.
And you don't want to have to re-educate every commissioner on the intricacies of TIF every single time, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But it,
So,
I mean,
so-
but the IDB board is not the application review committee. Good.
Mr. Berry?
When we first had this conversation about this, I thought it would be appropriate for the chair of the finance committee, since we are ultimately dealing with finance issues, county, be a good addition for a standing party to be on this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Commissioner Blake? Floor is yours. The motion is yours.
Well, I just was thinking that it's not so much something the 14 of us are going to make a nomination and vote on, either the chair or designate the chair of a certain committee relevant. That's my motive.
I do think, as Mr. Berry has suggested, if you change it to say it is that designee is the county commission chairman of finance, that would always be, we would always know that. So that would, from a
'Cause you always
policy
have to have a chairman.
standpoint, we always have a finance committee, we always have a chairman of the finance committee. That will be decided always, so that would be,
So, Chairman, I'd like to make that motion.
yes.
It's, if this is eventually going to have to go to the city, if they agree that we're going to put a commissioner in, that commissioner is going to be the chairman of the finance committee. That's the
Very
motion
good.
I'd like to put in the motion.
We have a motion on the floor to allow the chair of the finance committee to be the county commission's representation on the application review committee. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the
Second from
motion.
Commissioner Slater. Any discussion? Very good. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Any other comments specific to, we're into item B now, initial review by the application review committee.
Chairman Collins.
Ms. Freiberg?
I did want to say in section B there, where it starts at the end, the application review committee will also recommend, because now that if you have this committee, whether an economic impact analysis and/or but-for analysis. So that section starts what my concern was earlier. If you leave that section, so I just wanted to point out, that's where that specific language is in B, the last two full sentences. Actually,
Okay.
it's all one sentence. But anyway, that is the section that would need to be changed if you change it from being permissive may ask for it or the shall. So just wanted to point out that's where that is.
Thank you, Ms. Robert. And at this time, I'll hand the meeting over to Mayor Davis, just so I can offer comment. Mayor Davis.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner. Comment?
One of the, this was a big section for me, this and Section C that we'll get to, the initial resolution. And simply put, the requirements of the application, the but-for analysis, the economic impact analysis, and you'll see this in Section C, or you won't see this in Section C, but it's something that I have seen in different TIFs throughout, the world of TIFs, but a public service impact assessment. And I think that is imperative. We did not recognize Dr. Cash here. She has joined us a little bit late, but I think thank her for joining this, but I think part of that public service impact assessment that should be included, and my recommendation and my motion would be that an economic impact plan, an independent but-for analysis, as well as a public service impact assessment be mandatory in any application of TIF. I think those are things that create transparency for our community. They allow our Board of Governance, the city's Board of Governance, to understand all aspects of tax incremental financing and the request, and it keeps everything above board, but it also allows us to see the feasibility of it, and for, at least for the instance of public service impact assessment, part of this, and as you learn this, you understand what the TIF process does and what it takes away from. It is an incentive package, but it does remove the opportunity for your community to earn revenue that's necessary to provide for law enforcement, public safety, fire, ambulatory, and of course, public education. And those are big deals. And so when you start adding layers to a TIF where, for instance, just for argument's sake, you may add population into a TIF district, you may add homes or families or whatever, and that TIF becomes frozen, we lose the ability to provide funding for those elements. And that's a big deal. And that will be done for the allocation period of up to 20 years. So I think it's important that an applicant would stand before our IDB board, our application review committee, the county commission, and or the city council and say, hey, here's the economic impact. Here's the but-for analysis that says, you know what, this would not happen except for intervention by government. And here's what it's going to look like for public service. Here's what it's going to look like for our infrastructure. Here's what it's going to look like for our fire, emergency, public schools, all that good stuff. We need to know that. And so I would make that a motion, and that continues in C, in that section, that be included in all applications. So in the initial resolution by the board, we include those three requirements. And that, to me, would clean up the language throughout the policy and procedure about it may request or could request or whatever. It's will request, shall request, is required. I put that in the form of a motion.
Have a second. Commissioner Hughes? Other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
So I have an economic impact right in front of me. You're asking for a public service impact document. I gotta kind of get the economic one because we get those. And I read this, what will it enlighten me? Now I'll know that the TIF is going to do. How much, I guess, what does it do?
Sure. I think for public knowledge, I think you need to see, there are going to be instances, I would imagine, where a TIF district could be established that is simply for a specific capital project. I think of one that I studied in a town where they simply offered improvements on an area that was the size of a parking lot, and that area was considered a blight area. So there would be no public service impact, right? Because there's no homes being built there. You don't have to pay for schools. You don't have to pay for law enforcement, things like that. However, there are instances of TIF where you may say, hey, we want this TIF district to establish X, Y, and Z, and in those TIF districts, we're going to build, 1,500 homes. And we're going to have to provide for those families. We're going to have to provide law enforcement. We're going to have to provide schools. We're going to have to provide all of the things that come along with that. And what a TIF does is it freezes, that property value. And so we do not accrue the revenue and the allocation percentage that we would accrue and be used to provide those services. So we need to know that when we're making those decisions and an application comes in, we need to know, what's this going to cost us in 20 years? What are we going to have to provide for? Yes, in year 21, we may recover all those things, but in the meantime, our budget will be impacted because we have to pay for those services. So I think it's important. It may not be. It may be a TIF application where there is no public service impact, and you would say as much. Does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, when I see the economic, they're gonna spell out all kinds of ROIs, return on
Sure.
investment, stuff like
Sure.
that. More very tangible,
Sure.
quantifiable measurements, stuff like this. Public service is gonna be more intangible kind of
Sure.
things, like, not everybody's gonna be happy kind of stuff.
Sure.
More saying,
Sure.
but it's gonna be required, so if there's not a public service piece to it, not applicable.
Correct. Correct.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Crystal.
Well, I was just going to say, on that note, I do think if we're going to add a public service impact analysis, I think two things would need to be clear on that. One, because when we talk about the what we're requiring them to do now, this economic impact analysis, they're paying a third party to do that. I do know, I'm aware there are third parties that do economic impact analysis, like what you said. I think we would need to say, who's doing this public service impact analysis? Is it the applicant? Is it the board? Is it a third party? And if it is a third party, who pays for it? And are there people who do such a thing? So I don't know the answers to that question as I sit today. I'm sure you can probably pay anybody to do anything you want to, but I don't know who you pay to do a public service impact, or if it is something we would want them to provide, because as you said, that's going to be more subjective than the economic impact analysis. So that's just my thoughts. We should be clear as to who's providing that information if we're going to require it.
That's similar to the city doing something like that with annexation.
Yeah, that's very similar, and they do that, they'll always do that when they give us a plan of services. It'll go through fire, it'll go through police, it'll go through schools, and I'm assuming they do those internally. Joe could probably tell us that. That's my assumption. So, yeah, they're not paying anybody to do any kind of separate analysis. So I'm sure it is possible, but I think if we're going to require it, we need to clarify who does that analysis.
Seems to me like if it was in the city, it probably would be them doing it like they do a plan of service. If it's outside the city, it'd probably be on us to do or see that it got done. Wouldn't that make sense? Except
so.
that probably ought to say that. I mean,
Because like I said, it would be hard for me to imagine that there would be a third-party vendor out there that would come into Bradley County and somehow be able to tell us who's going to provide our public services. So, as you said, the city or county would probably have that information. But somebody's got to do it, and somebody's going to have to dig deep into that to know what to put in that document. So, yeah.
so would you be willing to add language that said public service impact assessment done by
I think the
entity?
applicant reasonable responsibility for cost. I think the applicant should be responsible for the economic impact plan and the but-for analysis for sure. I think the public service impact assessment, I imagine, and Dr. Cash?
The builds are affecting school zones, fire. It's all being affected. So I don't think you can isolate it just to the city or just to the county, because all of our boundaries are starting to blur. And without a full impact, I don't think you're going to get a big picture of what's needed, especially when you come to infrastructure with roads, traffic, number of houses that are being built, and the impact that has on everybody. There's a formula that schools use, actually architects use, to determine household impact. for schools. It's like, I want to, and I don't want to say a number, but it's like 1.5 per household. And then you aggregate that out all the way through. So I think it's a little deeper than just asking employees, departments, how does this impact you? Because it's a little deeper than that. I mean, you can look around now, and where subdivisions are going in, it's bumping into existing school zones. So it's bigger than what you guys are thinking. Let's just let the city handle it or the county handle it. It's a little bigger than that now. So I just want to point that out. I mean, just drive up North Lee Highway. I mean, it's a huge impact, and it's impacting everybody. And we are all citizens of the county, but there are a whole host of us that live inside the city, but we're also county residents. So I just want to put that out there.
Well, so who should be listed as doing this then? Yeah, does Doug have a suggestion?
I think local governments are the only ones who can determine those services. They're not a qualified entity to do that, and I'm not aware of third parties that do it. I'm sure you can find a consultant that would be willing to do it. And I'd also mention on the economic impact analysis, I'm currently analyzing an in-house model for us to actually do our own. Then I'm also securing quotes, just getting frameworks to understand what the costs are associated with a third-party review. I did receive a quote last week from an organization that we currently contract with for some of our economic analysis software. And that's going to run somewhere in the, just to give you a feel, somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 every time. So what I'm preparing to recommend to the industrial board is that we subscribe to our own system. Then we do an initial economic impact analysis internally to work with the review committee on. And at that point in time, determine if that additional cost is necessary or if the data tells us that this works in the way it's been submitted. The direction I'm taking in refining how our procedures operate internally is we take on. I do believe the county and the city each would need to do their own analysis of impact service. They're the ones that know the cost.
So right now, it looks like your amendment or change is to say that the board shall require an economic impact plan, specify or not specify third party, an independent but for analysis. Do you want to specify third party, or do you want to leave it economic impact plan is being prepared, shall be prepared? And then the independent, and then the public service impact assessment done by the appropriate local government.
I would say, I would imagine that anybody that's looking at a development of any significance and they're charged with finding a third party, they're going to find a favorable third party, I would imagine. You're dealing with people that would probably have plenty of capital to be able to do that. So to me, I think leaving the language as independent third party, at least gives us the opportunity to say, hey, we've asked for that. It doesn't, I appreciate Mr. Berry sharing the price tag, but that doesn't bother me because, these investors and developers are coming to us. They're the ones that are going to be going to the bank with the checks, not us. So that doesn't bother me. That's what America was built on. If you're the developer and investor, you take the risk and you incur that. You reap the benefit, but you also, have to take the risk. So that doesn't bother me. The public service impact assessment, I think it's important. I really do. I think, there may be lots of instances where it doesn't matter at all, where it never comes into play. Hey, we're talking about, a building that doesn't have an impact for law enforcement, education, anything. But in the event that there are, parcels or programs or districts that are established, I think we need to know. I think it needs to be articulated that this is the anticipated expectation that of impact for public services. This is how many, people, families will move in. This is how many, jobs or whatever we'll have. This is the impact of our public service, because ultimately we will be required to pay for that. And we will be limited in our revenue to pay for that because of the TIF. Ms. Freiberg, any comments, any suggestions?
From what I'm hearing, I think we would, if we do it, we would need to say the public service impact analysis, add that to it, and then specify that public service impact analysis would be conducted by both city and county, so that you get a overall picture. I think we just treat that one separate, and as you said, leave the economic impact analysis with the third party that we've said, but add that if we were, because the public service impact analysis is completely new and an addition, so we can
Correct.
add that to the language.
Okay.
And then just specify that if that's what we're looking at, that it would be done by city, county representatives.
So we're saying the board shall require preparation of the following: economic impact plan by a third party, independent but for analysis, public service impact assessment by both local government.
Yes.
The board shall not consider approval of a tax increment incentive until each of these has been completed. That pretty much
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll put that in
Second.
form of a motion.
all that. Good. Ms. Slater, any questions or comments?
Oh, we
I have
already
a
put that in
question, but
motion.
I'll wait till we finish
We
this.
already motioned.
My arm got
Yeah.
tired of being in the air.
So if there's no further discussion, you have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, I'll
Back
take
to
the,
you.
I'll take the meeting back. We'll move to Section D. the
Oh,
econo-
can I
oh,
ask
I'm
my
sorry.
question?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Freiberg, as we talk about an area where we may go in and build 1,500 homes, schools, fire departments, extra police departments, that's going to take extra personnel to be police, to be teachers, to be firemen. Are salaries covered under a TIF?
No, they are not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater. We'll move to Section D, Economic Impact Plan. I believe this, I'm sorry, any comments on Section D, Economic Impact Plan? Ms. Freiberg, I'll say this would be covered in our previous conversation in terms of the requirement, what the language shall read. Is that accurate? Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. No comments on that. We'll move to Section E, review of the plan by the application committee. Yes, Commissioner.
Doug, can I ask you a quick question? On the economic impact plan and those organizations who provide those services, do they have to be like pre-authorization? In other words, you have 10 companies or organizations who provide this service and they're kind of already pre-approved, or do you just open up for, anybody who wants to? In other words, like certain vendors are pre-approved that they can provide turf, and then, you know what I'm saying? I mean, they're kind of, they've
We're
already been.
currently working directly with Mr. Mamontoff to identify companies that they have been engaged with in their work around TIFs to screen companies and provide a list. I would assume that we would be providing a list of acceptable economic impact.
So in other words, in order to be considered to be the company that's going to provide the economic impact, you have to be on the list of approved companies or organizations.
Yes, it has to
Right.
be your business.
All right, yeah, because what you don't want is somebody tomorrow to go get a permit and open up and then that kind of thing.
No.
I can see that happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Blake. No additional comments. We'll move to Section E, review of the plan, or we're at Section E, review of the plan by application committee. Again, I'll make the comment, Ms. Freiberg, regarding the language, if requested, that would again fall into the, kind of our placeholder for shall request, I assume. Thank you. Any comments on this section? If none, we'll move to section F, public hearing and approval by board. Any comments from the committee here? Ms. Freiberg, I would ask a question. Is it possible to include in the language a statute that says there should be a plain language summary of the proposed plan that is shared in a certain time frame? Like, once this becomes agreed upon, this plan is shared with the public in large, like either via newspaper or social media or whatever the case, just again to alert and allow the community to know, hey, this is what's happening.
Well, yes, you could, and this would be the section that you would do it. However, I would say, the way I'm reading this, the application review committee, which is that committee that we talked about, is who is responsible for putting this notice of public hearing in the paper. So when you see these public notices, they don't include the whole plan. They basically, it's like when you guys do a zoning change or you guys do something, it is a very basic indication to the public that if you want more information about this, this is the public meeting you come to come and ask questions or to look at it. So that's not what you're going to see. And the reason for that is a couple things, and I don't mean this certainly bad to the banner at all, because everybody charges a lot, but it is very expensive to run lengthy ads. And so if you included the entire plan or much more than, you know, just the basics, those ads those costs can add up. And I read this to say that it would be the board that would be paying for these public notices. I assume Doug might know the answer to that, but I assume they're actually paying for that. So it would definitely be an additional cost if the more we require as far as what is included in that plan. So that would be my thought on that.
I would suggest to you that because we're required by the code to hold the public hearing as a prerequisite to submission of the plan to the
Mr. Berry, you want to come to the mic, Chair? Thank you, sir.
Excuse me.
No, you're good.
I would suggest that, you know, the Industrial Development Board, it's a public document at the point in time we have a public hearing and we go over that. So we would make that available to the public at their request. It would be available to public hearing, and we could even have it as a download on the chamber website or county or city government.
Mr. Berry, does the chamber or IDB, are they pretty active on social media at all?
No,
Okay. Is there a social media account, Facebook, Instagram, any of that?
no.
Okay.
Those
Okay.
are too short for documents that could be many, many pages. But we
Okay.
could put it, make it available through normal channels for public information, for download or however you like
Okay.
it.
We could consider that, Ms. Freiberg. That would be pretty cost effective in terms of just having it included maybe on the chamber's website or on the IDB, and that would exclude the newspaper, but it would allow, because I think that's one thing we get hit with all the time. People come in, well, I didn't know this was happening. I had no idea. And any element of transparency is good. And I think providing that information is positive. The cost of it is not, we don't want to get into, paying, sorry, Will, but we don't want to get into paying, for you to take a trip to Bermuda. But would anybody want to consider the opportunity to at least share via social media or however Mr. Berry sees fit? Any comments on that?
Much as we can get information, all the
Okay.
but we do have a county website.
Yep.
It has our budget on there and other things, so it can handle a 600-page document.
The Industrial Development Board posts its agendas for its meetings to comply with state law on the chamber website. We've had conversations and probably want to extend that and share that for
Okay.
sharing on county and city websites also. The Industrial Development Board does not maintain a website.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Any motions on this section, section F? All right, seeing none, we'll move to section G, approval of the taxing authority. Questions or comments on section G? Anything from the committee? All right, seeing none, let's move to section H, incentive documents. Ms. Freiberg, one thing I would ask in the incentive documents is that, and I may need to hand this off to the mayor to make this recommendation. I'll do that. I'll hand this off to the mayor.
Okay, what recommendation would you like to make for section H?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two things that are specific to me here is that the development agreement shall be provided to county legal counsel for review prior to execution. I think that's important language to include, is that our council have access to those development agreements. I know it's not specific in this section, but I think that's important to add. There is a consideration to add performance benchmarks. I think performance benchmarks are important, and to ask that the developmental agreements include those measurable benchmarks, capital investments, job creation, project completion, all of that. But I think that's included in the application. But beyond you having access to the development agreements, I think I would like to ask this and put this in the form of a motion that the board shall provide an annual report to the county commission detailing incremental revenues gained, amounts allocated, and project status. That's one thing that I would love to see more of, especially with our pilot programs. But in this, having the board come to us and share, hey, here's what's happening. We did, especially given the length of time, this could potentially be a 20-year agreement. I think having the board, stand up and say, hey, here's where we're at, here's what this looks like. I think that's a wonderful opportunity to present a project that is public-private partnership. So I would make a motion that we add those two elements, that the board provides an annual report to the county commission and that the development agreement is provided to the county legal counsel for review prior to the execution.
And that's in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Question on that, should it say provided to county and city legal counsel?
Ultimately, this is going to go back to the city, and they can do with it what they want to do. I mean, this is our lane, correct?
They probably would want to add
They-
it, but we could leave
yeah,
it to them.
We could leave it to them, but that's fine.
Do I
Either
have
way.
a second to the motion?
Second it, but with
Okay.
a question on that, you say, I agree that there should be something annually reported back to us, but annually, is that quarterly, yearly, or what?
Yearly.
Do you have a
Once a
certain
year.
date? on
Yearly.
that? Yearly.
I would assume it would start yearly from when it's implemented. That would be what?
As it's currently seen, I think the requirement in the policy is that the taxes have to be set up in a special account within 45 days and notified, the IDB has to be notified, so that would put us into mid-April. So sometime around mid-year, around your budget time would be when we
That'd
would
be awesome.
probably be in the best position to provide you an update
Yeah.
on the status of the projects and the revenue streams.
That'd be
and so-
great.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Berry.
So May, June,
A little
Good.
earlier, but yeah. And that's kind of how the pilots work. When we sit down with you on the pilots, we have
Yes.
a pretty good idea of the terms. We were looking at pilots the other day of which ones are coming up, where all of our pilots are in their cycle and stuff like
Yes.
that. But so, yeah, April, May latest. Yeah. But, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
So it says here, the board shall provide an annual report to the county commission detailing incremental revenue generated, amounts allocated, and project status. So that's at the aggregate, right? I mean, so there's gonna be more than one pilot going on I'm sorry, not pilot, TIF at one time, or potential of. So we're looking at not just itemizing TIF A and TIF B and TIF C, it's the aggregate of all of them, right?
They could report on all three at one time, for example,
Okay,
and
I just
they'd be
clarified
at
that.
different levels, but, yeah.
And where they're at in their cycle,
All
or
right. Any other comments? Mr. Slater, question, comment? Okay, we'll have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion passes. It's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll move to section 5. This is policy, so in a brand new section. So 5 takes us to that's going to be page 9, starting at page 9. Again, at the top of that, you'll see a little paragraph, but I think this will be captured in the language. Shall submit will be changed. That's another spot there that the shall submit an economic impact plan. So we'll move to maximum term. And this is statutory language, the maximum term. I think that's required by law, no more than 20 years, unless it goes to the Commissioner of Economic and Community Development. Any comments on this section, maximum term? And I would assume, Mr. Berry, that there would not be a request for more than 20 years without, that has to be approved, but that would be shared, yeah, that would, I imagine. There would be a process for that.
That would have to be agreed to for us to move forward
Yep.
with entering a
Just-
development agreement. And
Yep.
you know, you don't know what you don't know about the kind of projects, but our job as an industrial board is to minimize the term of that to what's essential to make the deal work.
And I thank you for
So-
that comment. I think that's very important.
Yeah, we're not out here trying to give away everything. We're trying to retain as much income as we can. And so, you know, our job is to vet this very tightly and to minimize the amount of the TIF allocation that goes, given the dynamics of an individual project and the public infrastructure needs.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Berry.
The individual TIF is gonna spell out the term, so it's gonna say 20, which locks them into 20. You would have an agreement on 20, I believe,
That's correct. And
or
there is
less.
there is conversation about, I read through many opportunities that a TIF could, essentially, I hate to say this, but a buyout almost. If the TIF is completed in a shorter term than the allocation period, it's almost like there's a no penalty clause for this allocation has recovered this amount of money. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Anything? Yes, Commissioner Blake.
Hey, one quick, Doug, so, pardon me, but I still got pilot way of doing things in my mind. I know TIF is different, but
They're
with,
similar but different.
yeah, I know, and like I said, we've done many of pilots. But when you guys are doing those, there's a negotiating, you're dealing with company A or B, whatever, and you're negotiating, because some of the pilots, you've had accelerated depreciation in there.
Yes.
And others maybe not. I mean, they're all have their own little quirks or. probably not
Based
quirks.
on the
So-
nuances of the investment, the
And
types of
the
investment.
the economic status and stuff
Yes.
like what's going on in the world. So at what point do you sit down and negotiate with company A or developer A? Is it during the application process or once they've identified that we're interested? Because I just,
Well,
I
we would
hadn't
have
quite-
to.
I haven't quite captured when the negotiations take place.
The negotiations take place between the time that the application is submitted and we bring you essentially a resolution to authorize us moving forward with the TIF. And you will be, generally speaking, as we are with pilots, before it comes before you
Sure.
for a specific action, you will all understand what we're asking you to vote on.
So the application is basically the catalyst to the process.
It starts a process which we are stating in this policy that we try to get through that process in a 60-day process from the time we receive all the application materials we need for evaluation. I think my conversations to date on economic impact analysis, most are telling me that that is a minimum of a 4 to 6 week period from the time we contract them. So 60 to 90 days, I think, is the window that we're probably going to most likely be working to hit.
Not to put words in your mouth, but inherent in the application process is the negotiation period.
Yes.
All right, that's all I need. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Blake. Any other comments on maximum term? Let's move forward to B, and this is a significant one for me, so I'm going to ask the mayor to take over at this time.
Okay, allocation of tax increment revenues. Comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner.
So this was one that when I read, I'm going to pass this out. But when I read through, I talked to Mr. Berry about it a lot, and I think we'll differ in our language. The board can allocate a maximum of 80%. What I have read and heard and kind of the comments in navigating this TIF is that it would be important for us to designate what the default is. And so my proposal is twofold. I would like to propose that the designated default allocation be at 50%. It can move to 80% or above 50%, but the default is 50% for Bradley County. Anything above 50% must be recommended by the County Commission Finance Committee and then subsequently approved by resolution of the County Commission. In essence, this gives an applicant, whomever, the board, it necessitates them to come to us and say, hey, this is going to be a big project. You know, we may need 80% or whatever, and it allows us the opportunity to kind of negotiate those allocation percentages, which is significant because the allocation percentages, that's the point of revenue that the county would receive. And if we are locked away at 80% for 20 years, that's 80% of potential revenue that our county will not have to provide services for. And I think, you know, the mayor's had conversations a lot with the commission as a whole about the need for revenue and where we are as a county and other elements. So I think looking at that and forecasting this for the next 50, 100 years, we will want to be able to have those conversations about allocation percentages and talk about those specific to each TIF. I would add to that, that would be the first part of it. The second part of it would be, and we can take it as a whole or split it up, anything above 50% would designate what's called a step-down provision. So, for instance, and I've given you this by way of just illustration, this is by no means a policy, but what you would look at, if you had an allocation that is approved at 80%, then there would be an automatic step-down of 10% every 5 years. So that would read like this: an allocation approved at 80% shall be reduced to 70% beginning at year 6, 60% beginning at year 11, and then to 50% beginning at year 16. I know that would complicate things for investors and developers. However, we've got to create policies that, again, help us to recover as much of the revenue as we possibly can in these situations, especially in scenarios where there may be public service needs. So this would allow us that opportunity. Now, doesn't mean it has to be. We could come in, a TIF project could come in, Mr. Berry could come in and say, hey, we've got a TIF district, we need 80%. We do not need a step-down provision. We've got to have 80, and we've got to have it for 20 years. That would go to the Finance Committee, the board, the applicant, whomever could make that appeal. The Finance Committee could say, absolutely, we see the need for that. There's no public service impact. We're running sewer to a building like they were doing at Northgate Mall. No problem. We approve that, or we recommend it, gets approved by the County Commission. There you go. So it doesn't eliminate that. It just creates the default for our county and the default for our taxpayers that, hey, this is where we start. Anything else needs to be articulated above that. That's the motion I would make. I know that's wordy, and I apologize.
So the motion is to change the default allocation from 80% to 50% and include a step-down provision if the 50% is approved, right?
With the caveat that a request above 50% can come to the Finance Commission to move it above.
Okay.
That's correct.
Got that in the motion?
So I'll
Lori?
second that for discussion.
Okay, second by Commissioner Slater. Questions, comments? Go ahead.
Doug, your thoughts?
I do want to make sure we understand that, first of all, the taxes on a piece of property as they exist at the time that we set a plan are frozen and remain under your control. And this plan currently allocates a maximum of 80%, which means you're guaranteed a 20% gain on any new investment that occurs. That was specifically done to make sure that there was net revenue growth. What it does not affect at all are personal property taxes on the part of commercial enterprises that are there. So that's a tax increment that you will gain immediately upon investment. And we're not even talking about the sales tax impact, which is also a gain that, as I understand it, under the current agreements between the city and county, it is approximately a 50% split on sales tax revenues that are generated within the city of Cleveland. So there are revenue streams intended to remain with this growth that helps meet some of those costs. If you want to set a standard that can then be amended with proof of need to up to 80%, that's your decision.
Yes, Commissioner Blake.
Hey, real quick, Doug or Mayor. So when you have a TIF, and I'm thinking city, county mostly. Obviously, it wouldn't apply if it's this county. Can the terms be unique or specified, if that's the right word, for city government and somewhat different? In other words, let's say the city's okay with 80%. Let's say we're not, or vice versa. In other words, there's a delta. Are we allowed, or does it have to be uniform all the way through?
I don't see that it has to be uniform for us to be able to enact and carry out the policy and the TIF
The reason I
program.
ask is we have different services. We provide jail, they don't. We provide ambulance, they don't. But they do other things. In other words,
They do things that you don't do too.
exactly, yeah. So, but the answer to the question, just to make sure, is that it can be tailored to each government entity. Eventually there's going to be a contract or something, kind of legal document with the developer, right?
Yes,
Yeah, so
it would just
county's going to say, oh, we're good with 50, and the city's like, oh, we're good with 80, and that's going to be okay.
if it meets the terms that that development group is saying they need to have help with
Yeah,
in
of course, they
order to
would have
make
to
it
agree to
work,
it.
then yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Other questions? Andy, Mike?
I would just say as a final pitch on this motion is that it's a default, and what it creates that I like that I've heard from other people, it creates a tether to any process. It creates a tether to the application. It creates a tether to, the applicant, all that good stuff, which is good. Those are good things to have because it creates transparency. It creates a space where everything is brought, out in the open, and hey, this is what's being asked for. This is what we can do. And anytime we can create a space for that conversation, I think that's positive. So that's the idea is the default's 50, and if we need to go more, we can still do that. We've created a mechanism to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't eliminate it. It just puts an extra step in if the need is justified. So the motion is to change the default from 80 to 20, and it can go
80 to 50.
80 to 50, and it can go to the Finance Committee for a recommendation for more than that, and then the full commission, and also include the step-down provisions. That is clear as mud?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, motion passes. Go ahead, you
All
got
right.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on to C, minimum percentage of cost size. This one speaks a little bit about public infrastructure. Ms. Freiberg, I know you've talked about public infrastructure, and I know it's loose. So we've talked about this 1,000 times, you and I have, and I call you all the time and say, hey, what is this? Does this define that? And there's not. We've searched high and low. There is no document that says this is what public infrastructure is. But I think it's important to note for the record, the purpose of the TIF, as it began, was about public infrastructure. Hey, what can we do to create maybe a road that would open up this to develop this blighted community in this blighted area? So I think that's important to discuss. It was not designed to, you know, hey, we're going to add on to the Taj Mahal, right? I mean, it was not the intent and the purpose of it. Any comments on that, Ms. Freiberg?
No, I think that's correct, and like I said, I wish there was a way that I could give you a list of, you know, these are things that are included in public infrastructure, these are things that are not, but I don't know a way to do that. I do think there, if you look at it practically, though, as this being a policy, a guiding document, the check on that is if you get a particular TIF and you feel like we're pushing those margins too far, if you think it doesn't really qualify as public infrastructure, if it's something that's being paid for that you think we shouldn't be doing this, you simply don't approve that TIF. So I do think while I know it bothers us a little bit that it's hard to know exactly what it is, you all certainly have the ability, when you get a particular TIF, to look at it, and it's going to be spelled out in all the documentation what it's being used for, that you say, we just don't think this qualifies as public infrastructure. So I do think, while I understand the concerns, you always have the ability to not approve one if it gets pushed too far.
Excellent commentary. Thank you, Ms. Freiberg. Any other comments from the group? Very good, Mr. Berry.
I would just add, as I mentioned earlier, that we would be in dialogue internally as we go through that application review process with those of you on county commission or designated negotiators from within the county and the city to work through those before we come with a final document, final proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Let's move on to Section D, eligible costs, and this is a two-pager, and it clearly defines, I think, some of the eligible cost items. Again, it gets into public infrastructure, not to beat that dead horse, but, you know, kind of what it is and what it isn't. And as Ms. Freiberg alluded to, the commission would have that opportunity to review maybe some of the items that could move beyond what is a comfortable definition of public infrastructure. Any comments on this section? Very good. We'll move to Section E, plan area. And I think I'll echo again what has been said from Mr. Berry, Ms. Freiberg. Again, kind of in the same vein, I think we've created a tether that would allow us the opportunity to see some of the items that may be captured in the plan area along the way, which is always a positive thing. Any comments on that before we move on? We're getting there, Commissioner Hughes. I'm hurrying. Let's move on to F, transfer of the TIF. And we'll take F and G together. Transfer of the TIF, necessity of the TIF. In necessity, I think it's important. Again, this is going to be one of those places where we document that there is, we want to remove discretionary language about the mandatory requirements. So a third party but-for analysis is required. So that's going to be another place where we'll indicate.
Yes, and I will go through the document and make sure that we hit all of those areas. So we will change all the language
Thank you.
is identified with that motion to make all that mandatory. Yes, I will make sure we do that.
Thank you. Comments on G? Move forward to H, designated parcels. And then we'll move on to I, calculation of increment. This is one, Mr. Berry, I was really fascinated by and interested in. And I know you've got the parcel by parcel allocation, or you've got the aggregate calculation. Have you had any conversations about maybe what most people do in terms of how they go about allocation? Is it a parcel by parcel? Is it an aggregate? I was not able to find any. What's the best play?
I think that's something that we will have to learn and work through
Sure.
in a project to understand fully ourselves.
Sure.
I'm not claiming we have
Sure.
all the answers on this first round that we go through. We're trying to set a policy frameworks
Sure.
by which we can learn this together on the first one. It may be a pretty complex one on the first one, as we've all had general discussions around the community, but part of this is we're growing and learning at the same time.
Thank you, sir. Any comments on I, calculation? We'll move to J, payment dates, and I think Mr. Berry alluded to that. No comments on J. K is a big one, Ms. Freiberg, and I would just comment that is this strong enough as a protection for our county? And this is the non-recourse obligation.
This section, as I think I have joked with you, was the biggest thing when we all started talking about this that I was concerned about, which is the general proposition that, you know, the county is not backing the debt. And so that I think is, the truth is, I don't know that there's anything we need to add to the section because that will, the legal requirements are the legal requirements. So, I mean, us putting it in a policy doesn't give us really any more protection than we would just have and make those arguments. But I do think that is important. It's important to note the fact that, if you read that, as you said, the liability of the board for any obligations under debt obligation, it specifically says neither the county nor the city shall have any obligations or liabilities with respect to any tax increment incentive other than to allocate incremental tax revenue to the board. So the board is the one that's taking that responsibility. So I do think it's important to note. I don't know that it does us any good to change the language of the policy because the protections are the protections.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next question.
Mr. Mayor.
Just more on process. The trustee collects all taxes, and the ones that pertain to TIF, at, I guess, the end of February, he's gonna send that check to the IDB to put in there.
Correct.
And no,
That's what I thought, so.
No, they would be required, I think how it's intended is they would be required to set up a special fund to put those dollars into through his normal channels. And then we would issue him a letter requesting a release of those funds to the board in compliance with the agreement, and then we would reimburse the necessary party.
so when he collects this TIF, he puts it in a special fund,
Yeah, he has to separate it from your general fund.
and
Kind of.
then you're gonna request it to go from that special fund to your account.
To the IDB, which would have a separate account for the TIF programming from its normal account.
He will only be putting in 50 or whatever percent in the
Whatever
agreement.
is
into that.
generated in any given year, and the only thing that we can issue are the actual allocations. So we do not have any authorities beyond what he collects and allocates to that fund.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Blake? You have that look.
Yeah, the inner workings is always important.
Well, and that's why in the fee section down there, there's allocations for their office and the city and us to work on those things and to offset those expenses. We assume that there's additional work on everyone's part. Keep in mind, I am the entire staff for the industrial board. Okay, so it may require us to have help too, depending upon how many happen and things. So that's part of the contemplation in this policy also.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. In any other comments? Very good. Section L, calculation of allocated increment. I think we were all pretty comfortable with that. I assume, Mr. Berry, that and you don't have to come back, but the calculations, the annual calculations will be reported in the annual reporting that we asked for. Is that correct? Okay. So that would be great. M, tax consequences of transaction. And that, I think, concludes that major section. The rest of it we will take as a whole, and then we'll get into the application. So it's fees and expenses of the board. We've talked a little bit about those expenses. That's section 6. Any questions about fees and expenses of the board? Commissioner Blake, anything? Fees and expenses? Okay. Miss,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I do think we would need to clarify, I don't think we need to vote on anything for it, but I just want to specify that since you all as part of your amendment, added the public, service impact study, I need to include that in how those, and we've talked about how that could do, so I think I can do it, but I will need to add that so it's clear how that will be.
That would be included in the red line document that we.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Perfect. Okay, no questions on 6, fees and expenses. 7's just definition. Then finally, Commissioner Blake, I'll open it up for you. I think you had asked about the application itself.
Well, one of the things, Crystal, I was concerned about is we do things, conflict of interest, so to speak. The application review committee is gonna have a number of people in there, and they could have different types of interests. You know, one board member there could have a family member that's on the application side, and they needed, all I'm saying is there needs to be a requirement that if there is a conflict of interest, that they just merely disclose that, like we do up here, and I think the city council and, the planning commission, those people knows, they disclose when if you're gonna be providing a loan to one of these developers, or if you're gonna provide insurance to them, or whatever, it just needs to be disclosed, not to exclude them, but just that they disclose that, so that, and that's all for transparent. Does that make sense?
Our policy as an industrial board is if you have a direct impact, or if you're engaged with a specific project, you recuse yourself from the vote.
Okay.
We have a pretty solid policy following Robert's Rules of Order. So if you have any connection that may be interpreted as financial, then you have to disclose that and not vote on that.
So does
item.
that take care of my concern?
Well, I think they're two separate issues. What he's talking about is any conflict of interest that may exist from IDB board members or people who are on the committee reviewing this. And that would not be as part of, the application is just for the applicant. So that's gonna be the developer, the person that's coming in who's saying, I wanna do this project. So,
I was thinking of the review committee member.
yeah, so if that's what you're asking, that would not need to be in the application.
Okay.
I do think, as you said, that's something that certainly needs to happen. And obviously, just like with you all, I mean, it's inappropriate for you all to not disclose conflicts of interest. So I think that the board members have those obligations, so those are covered. I don't think that that needs to be covered, because the application is for the person submitting it, saying this is what I have. So I think it sounds like it's covered already in separate documents, correct?
Yes.
For the
We follow Robert's Rules of Order, and we interpret that clearly as being if you have any direct ties to the item under consideration, financial or personal, then you're required to disclose that, and you're required to recuse yourself from the vote, period.
Or for the process, I mean, in other words, you're out
You're out,
from A to Z.
yes.
And similar to what you all have, a direct conflict of interest is a financial benefit. You're directly financially benefiting, and similar to you all, you cannot vote on those things. You cannot be involved in the discussion. You cannot do anything. Indirect conflicts of interest are different. Those are more tangential, that are not directly related to finances or anything like that. So it would need to be similar, and I think everybody that's on there would already probably know those rules.
Wrap it up. Are we covered with their way of
Yes.
doing things now, and we don't need to add anything?
I don't think so, no.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Blake. And any other comments? Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Slater? Okay.
One more. Just
Yes, sir.
So, just as we go through all of this, hopefully this never happens. Obviously, it's legal stuff. All right. Let's say a developer isn't happy with us, and they obtained an attorney, and they file lawsuit. How do we handle? I mean, you're our attorney here, and we have insurance to cover certain things. We found out we have issues where insurance doesn't cover some of the things we get sued for. How do we make sure that we're covered in the whole? Hope we never get sued, but you never know, right?
Well, I mean, if,
Does that make sense?
yeah, and I mean, it would be hard for me to articulate, I guess, a good legal claim, because a developer doesn't have any entitlement to a pilot or to a TIF or anything like that. So I think it would first off be a hard cause of action to bring.
Okay.
But if they were able to bring something, it would have to be related to you all not approving the project. And I don't know of any exclusion for that. I mean, you all obviously have me, and then you certainly have insurance related to your liability acting as county commissioner. So as long as you're not acting outside of the scope of your seats on the county commission, then that should be applicable to our insurance. And of course, I'm the backup to that. So
Right.
so
Well, I
yes.
mean, as you well know, we get sued for all kinds of stuff, and some of them are covered and some of them are not. But I just want to, as we talk about this today, because I don't know if we're ever going to have another chance, want to cover
Yes,
that.
and well, I just want to say too, I mean, I've never seen any lawsuits related to that, because as I said,
I mean, we've been sued over a rezoning.
absolutely, and that's what I was going to say. That I would think that if you were a lawyer, you would make a similar analysis as to that, which the standard for that is that if you all act arbitrary and capriciously, you can get in trouble on rezoning things. So I would always encourage you, and some of you probably heard me say it millions of times, as long as you're making decisions that are not arbitrary and capricious, what do those mean? There's some cases on that, but obviously you don't want to act arbitrarily. So as long as we stay away from doing that, and I've never seen us do that, we should be fine.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Hallelujah. This concludes our conversation on the proposed TIF program policy and procedures. Given the recommended changes and amendments to the document, I ask that Ms. Freiberg and Ms. Moultrie work to create that legal draft reflecting our proposed changes. And what I'd like to do is set another legal legislative meeting for 11 a.m. on Monday, the April 13th, with the intent that we will just we'll peruse the document that's been prepared. And if it's acceptable, we'll look for a motion to accept that document and recommend it to the full commission during that work session at noon.
So therefore, it would hopefully be on the agenda for a vote on the 20th.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
So that answers kind of a question I had. So we, as a commission, voted that TIF applications are going to have to go through 2 work sessions. This is basically free all that, so
Well,
it
this is
doesn't have to go through 2 work sessions.
correct. It's not a TIF application. All right, very good. Once again, thank you, everybody. I appreciate the homework that you did. I know this was heavy lifting, but it was hopefully enjoyable at least to learn a little bit about this. Other business, is there any other business? Will, any business from you? None? Very good. At this time, communication from the audience. Anybody want to speak? Thank you for sticking it out. No communication from the audience. Mr. Berry? Yes, sir.
I would just like to thank all of you for digging into this issue and this topic. I think it's very important for our community as we move down the road. As I've mentioned previously, we're going to see a different mix of activities, and even our industrial board and our chamber, we're beginning to shift our attention more towards the commercial sectors in order for us to maximize our earnings potential as a community through tax gains. Thank you.
And Mr. Berry, I appreciate you. You've been available every step of the way, and
Yes.
appreciate kind of how you've gone about your business, just being a resource for us. Thank you for that. Outside of that, we're adjourned.